Captain Kim Dae felt the cold metal restraints cutting into his wrists as another wave of pain shot through his skull. The neural probe withdrew from his temple with a wet sound, leaving behind a throbbing ache that made his vision blur. He had lost count of how many times they had done this. Was it day 15, 20? Time moved strangely in this place. The walls around him pulsed with a sickly green light, alive and breathing like the inside of some massive creature. Everything in this prison was organic, grown rather than built. The floor beneath his feet was warm and slightly damp, covered in a membrane that responded to his heartbeat with gentle ripples. Even the air tasted wrong, thick with alien pheromones that made his nose burn. Commander HFY clicked across the room on 6 spindly legs, his insect-like body towering over Dae's chair. The creature's 4 arms moved independently, one operating a holographic control panel while another held a neural scanner. His compound eyes reflected the green light in thousands of tiny fragments, making it impossible to tell where he was looking. Still nothing, HFY chittered to his assistant, a smaller Vexter, who scuttled around the room's perimeter. This one has remarkable mental barriers for such a primitive species. Dae said nothing. He had learned their language weeks ago, by listening to their casual conversations. They spoke freely in front of him, believing humans were too stupid to understand. That mistake would cost them dearly, though they did not know it yet. The holographic display showed Earth floating in space, surrounded by data streams and tactical assessments. Red markers indicated human colonies, each one labeled with population numbers and defensive capabilities. To the Vexstar, it must have looked pathetic. 50 worlds scattered across 3 star systems, protected by ships that barely qualified as military vessels. Your homeworld has what, 8 billion inhabitants, HFY mused, zooming in on the blue marble that was Earth. We conquered systems with 10 times that population before your species even discovered fire. The alien's mandibles clicked in what Dae had learned was amusement. HFY enjoyed these one-sided conversations. He would spend hours explaining to his prisoner just how hopeless humanity's situation was, how easily the Vexstar Empire would sweep through human space once they finished their analysis. Do you know how many species we have catalogued? HFY continued, pulling up another display showing hundreds of different alien races. Most were marked with a red symbol that Dae had come to understand meant extinct or enslaved. 734 intelligent species. Your kind will be 735. Dae forced his expression to remain blank, but inside, he was filing away every detail. The Vexstar had conquered nearly half the galaxy, but they had grown lazy and arrogant. They relied on fear and overwhelming numbers rather than tactics or innovation. Their ships were massive but slow, their weapons powerful but predictable. More importantly, they had never faced a species like humanity. The assistant scuttled closer, its smaller frame barely reaching HFY's shoulder. Commander, the neural probe shows he understands our language. His brain patterns spike whenever we mention strategic information. Of course he does, HFY replied dismissively. Most species pick up basic comprehension after prolonged exposure. It changes nothing. Look at him. The commander gestured with 2 arms toward Dae, who sat slumped in his restraints, looking every bit the defeated prisoner they expected. His clothes were torn and stained, his face gaunt from weeks of minimal nutrition. To alien eyes, he appeared broken. This is what humanity produces, HFY said with contempt. Their so-called military officers crack under basic interrogation techniques. Their diplomatic corps sends unarmed vessels into unknown space. They are a species of sheep pretending to be wolves. Dae almost smiled at that assessment, but caught himself in time. If only they knew the truth. Humanity had not sent him because he was expendable. They had sent him because he was one of their best intelligence officers, trained in survival and information gathering behind enemy lines. His mission had never been just about establishing diplomatic contact. The Vexstar had made their first critical error. by capturing him alive instead of simply destroying his ship. Their second error was keeping him conscious during interrogation, allowing him to observe and learn. They saw his silence as weakness when it was actually discipline. They interpreted his apparent defeat as confirmation of human frailty when it was careful performance. Perhaps we should simply extract what we need surgically, the assistant suggested, producing a wicked-looking organic tool that resembled a cross between a scalpel and a parasite. No, HFY decided, after a moment's consideration. The specimen may yet prove useful for psychological warfare against his species. Humans are notably attached to individuals. We will broadcast his execution across their colonies. Let them see what happens to those who resist the Vexstar Empire. Day felt a cold satisfaction at those words. They were going to give him exactly what he needed, a direct communication link to human space. Every tactical detail he had memorized, every weakness he had identified, every strategic insight he had gained would reach his people. The Vexter thought they were about to break human morale with a demonstration of power. Instead, they were about to hand humanity the keys to their own destruction. Li Min felt the rough metal beneath her bare feet as the guards pushed her onto the execution platform. The structure was made from the same living material as everything else in this place, warm and slightly soft like skin. Strange purple veins ran through the floor, pulsing with each beat of whatever massive heart powered this station. Around her, dozens of Vexstar soldiers formed a circle, their compound eyes reflecting the harsh lights that illuminated the platform. Some held weapons, others operated recording equipment that would broadcast her death across the galaxy. She could see the red lights blinking on multiple devices, all pointed at her. Commander HFY stood at the center of it all, his four arms moving in what she had learned was a gesture of triumph among his people. Behind him, a massive neural disruptor hummed with deadly energy. The weapon looked like a twisted tree made of metal and flesh, its branches crackling with electricity. "Citizens of the Vexstar Empire," HFY announced, his voice carrying across the platform through speakers built into the walls. "Today you witness the fate of all who oppose us. This human believed her species could stand against our might." Min tried to keep her breathing steady as she looked around the platform. She had spent weeks memorizing every detail of this place. During her captivity, the guard rotations, the power systems, the communication arrays that would carry her final message. Everything depended on the next few minutes. The alien commander turned to face her, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "Your diplomatic mission was a failure, human. Your people sent you to negotiate, but there is nothing to negotiate. We will take your worlds, catalog your species, and add you to our collection." She said nothing, letting him enjoy his moment of superiority. Around the platform, more Vexstar gathered to watch the execution. They chittered among themselves in their harsh language, excited by the spectacle. They had probably never seen a human before, let alone watched one die. "Do you know how many species have stood where you stand now?" HFY continued, gesturing to the platform with two of his arms. "Hundreds. Each one believed they were special, that their people would somehow resist us. They all said the same thing in the end. They begged for mercy." Min almost smiled at that. The Vexstar understood so little about humanity. They saw her silence as fear when it was actually focus. They interpreted her calm acceptance as defeat when it was preparation for her. Real mission. The recording devices moved closer, their operators eager to capture every detail of her final moments. Red lights blinked from at least 6 different angles, ensuring her death would be visible from every possible viewpoint. The broadcasts would reach every corner of Vexter space within hours, spreading fear and demonstrating their power. More importantly, those same broadcasts would reach human space. "Your ship was destroyed easily," HFY said, pulling up a holographic display that showed the wreckage of her diplomatic vessel. "Your weapons could not even scratch our hull plating. Your shields lasted mere seconds against our lightest guns. The display shifted to show tactical analyses of human defenses across 50 worlds. Red markers indicated military installations, most of them laughably small by Vexter standards. Population centers glowed blue, showing billions of humans who had no idea what was coming for them. "This is what we do to resistance," the commander announced, gesturing toward the neural disruptor. "This weapon will scramble your brain patterns, sending you into convulsions before your heart stops. Your people will watch you die in agony, and they will understand the futility of opposing us." Min had watched them use that weapon before, during her weeks of captivity. She had seen other prisoners writhe and scream as the neural energy tore through their minds. But she had also observed something the Vexstar did not realize. The weapon needed 30 seconds to charge between uses, and it left the operator temporarily blind to electromagnetic interference. "Last words, human?" Hixavel asked, his voice dripping with contempt. "Perhaps you wish to beg for your life, or maybe send a final message of surrender to your people." Min looked directly into the nearest recording device, knowing that millions of humans would see her face in the next few hours. She thought about her family back on Earth, about the children playing in parks who had no idea aliens existed. She thought about the soldiers training on Mars who believed they were preparing for theoretical conflicts. Most of all, she thought about every detail she had memorized during her captivity. "To my people watching," she said calmly, her voice carrying clearly across the platform. "Their ships cannot handle electromagnetic pulse bursts above 2.4 ter. The frequency disrupts their navigation systems and causes cascade failures in their power cores." The Vexstar around the platform began chittering in confusion, unsure why she was talking about technical specifications instead of pleading for mercy. "Their command structure relies completely on pheromone communication," Min continued, looking directly into the camera. "Disrupt those chemical signals, and they panic. Their soldiers become confused and cannot coordinate attacks." Hicks realized what was happening and moved toward the neural disruptor controls, but Min kept talking. "Their home system is 3 jumps past the Vega sector. The 4th planet is where they breed their young. The space stations there have no military defenses because they never expected anyone to find them." The neural disruptor began to hum as it charged, but her words were already racing across the galaxy at faster than light speeds. "Remember this moment," she concluded, her voice steady as stone. "Humanity forgives nothing." The weapon fired. Park Jun stared at the holographic display floating above the conference table, his hands shaking slightly as he paused the footage for the 20th time. Li Min's face filled the air in front of him, frozen at the moment she spoke her final words. Her expression was calm, determined, showing no trace of the fear that should have consumed someone facing death. "Play it again," whispered Dr. Choi Hannah from across the table. She had been taking notes frantically for the past 3 hours, filling page after page with technical specifications that Min had somehow memorized during her captivity, the part about their power cores. "I need to hear those frequencies one more time." The bunker beneath New Seoul hummed with activity as staff officers hurried between workstations, their faces grim with the reality of what they had just witnessed. The emergency lighting cast harsh shadows on the concrete walls, making everyone look older and more tired than they were. Outside, the city went about its normal business, unaware that everything had changed. Around the oval table, representatives from 47 human worlds sat in stunned silence. Admiral Chen from the Mars Defense Force rubbed his temples as if fighting a headache. Governor Liu from the Titan colonies stared at her hands, still processing what she had seen. Captain Torres from the Europa mining station kept shaking his head in disbelief. "She knew," Jun said quietly, his voice barely audible over the hum of the bunker's life support systems. "Min knew they were going to execute her. She planned this whole thing." On the screen, Min continued speaking directly to the camera, revealing military secrets that should have taken intelligence agencies years to gather. Ship weaknesses, communication protocols, the location of breeding worlds that the Vexstar had kept hidden for centuries. She delivered each piece of information with perfect clarity, as if she were giving a routine briefing instead of facing death. How did she memorize all of this? Governor Liu asked, looking up from her notes. The technical specifications alone would fill a manual. The star charts, the biological data, the tactical assessments. She was our best intelligence officer, Jun replied, though his voice carried a note of amazement. But this, this is beyond anything we trained for. She turned her own execution into the greatest intelligence coup in human history. Dr. Choi highlighted sections of her notes, cross-referencing the data with what little humanity knew about alien technology. Look at this, she said, projecting her analysis onto the main screen. Their electromagnetic vulnerability isn't just a weakness, it's a critical flaw in their entire military design. They built their empire, assuming no one would discover it. The footage continued playing, showing Min's final moments as the neural disruptor charged up behind her. Even facing that horrible weapon, she kept talking, giving humanity every advantage she could. Her last words echoed through the bunker with the weight of a declaration of war. Humanity forgives nothing, Admiral Chen repeated slowly. Is that what we're going to do? Turn ourselves into exactly what they think we are? Jun looked around the table at the faces of humanity's leaders. These were people who had spent their careers building colonies, managing trade agreements, and resolving disputes through diplomacy. They were administrators and scientists, not warlords. But he could see something changing in their expressions as they watched Min die. They made a mistake, he said, standing up from his chair. The Vexstar looked at our 50 scattered worlds and saw weakness. They saw our peaceful expansion and thought we were soft. They have no idea what kind of species they just declared war on. Captain Torres leaned forward, his mining experience making him practical about resource allocation. Our industrial capacity is spread across 3 star systems. Converting civilian production to military hardware will take months, maybe years. Then we start immediately, Jun replied, already thinking about the orders he would need to send. Every factory, every shipyard, every research station. I want production schedules rewritten by tomorrow morning. Dr. Choi pulled up population statistics for human space. We have 8 billion people on Earth alone, plus another 2 billion spread across the colonies. The Vexstar conquered other species by intimidating small populations. They've never faced anything like our numbers. Governor. Liu stood up, her expression hardening as she made her decision. The Titan colonies can convert our chemical processing plants to weapons manufacturing within 6 weeks. We've been producing industrial compounds, switching to explosives won't be difficult. Around the table, other representatives began volunteering resources. The Mars Defense Force could triple recruitment immediately. The Europa mining operation could redirect their excavation equipment for military engineering. Research stations throughout human space could focus entirely on developing weapons based on Min's intelligence. What about the other species? Admiral Chen asked. The ones the Vexstar have already conquered. Some of them might join us if they see we can actually fight back. Jun considered that possibility. The footage showed hundreds of different alien races that had fallen to the Vexstar Empire. Many of them were probably still alive, enslaved or imprisoned on distant worlds. They would be watching humanity's response very carefully. We'll worry about allies later, he decided. Right now, we need to show the galaxy what happens when you execute a human diplomat on live broadcast. He looked back at the frozen image of Min's face, remembering the woman behind the intelligence officer. She had a family on Earth, friends who were probably watching this same footage and grieving her loss. The Vexstar thought her death would terrorize humanity into submission. Instead, they had just awakened something that had been sleeping for generations. Send the mobilization orders, Jen commanded. All colonies, all stations, all defense forces. Tell them Li Min's final intelligence package is classified Priority 1, and make sure they understand her last words. The gentle species, the Vexter, had dismissed, was about to show them what 10,000 years of warfare had taught humanity about revenge. Admiral Song Kyung stood at the observation deck of the HSS Retribution, watching orange flames consume what had once been Vextar Station, Epsilon. The massive alien structure twisted and collapsed as internal explosions tore through its biomechanical corridors. Pieces of the station drifted past her viewport, some still glowing hot from the electromagnetic pulse that had crippled its defenses. Target eliminated, Admiral, Captain Namte reported from the bridge below. His voice carried no emotion, just cold efficiency. All weapon systems destroyed. No escape pods detected. No survivors. Kyung nodded without turning away from the burning wreckage. 6 months ago, she had been commanding cargo escorts between Earth and the outer colonies. Now she led humanity's first true war fleet, armed with weapons designed from Li Min's final intelligence package. The transformation had been swift and terrible. Scanning for the next target, Lieutenant Park reported from the sensor station. I'm detecting 3 more Vextar installations within 2 light-year. All appear to be military outposts. Set course for the nearest one, Kyung ordered. Maximum stealth. We hit them before they know we're there. Through the bridge's main screen, she could see the other ships in her fleet, adjusting their positions. 12 human vessels, each one purpose-built for this war. They looked nothing like the peaceful exploration ships humanity had been building just months earlier. These were predators, sleek and dangerous, designed for one thing only. The Vexter had made their first mistake by assuming humans would fight like other species. They expected territorial battles, demands for resources, or attempts to negotiate better treatment for conquered populations. They had prepared their empire for that kind of conventional warfare. Instead, humanity had declared total war. Captain Nam approached her position, carrying a data tablet showing their next objectives. Admiral, we've received updated intelligence from the other hunter groups. Fleet 7 destroyed a breeding facility in the Kepler system. Fleet 3 eliminated a command center near Proxima. The Vextar are starting to abandon their outer territories. Kung studied the tactical display, noting how Vextar forces were pulling back toward their core worlds. It was exactly what human strategists had predicted. The aliens had grown comfortable with their empire, spreading their forces thin across hundreds of systems. They had never faced an enemy that could strike anywhere without warning. Any communication attempts from Vextar commanders? She asked. Several, Admiral. They're trying to establish diplomatic contact, offering to negotiate terms for ending the conflict. Some are even offering to release human prisoners. Kyung almost smiled at that. The Vexter still did not understand what they were dealing with. They thought this was about rescuing captives or securing better terms for humanity's surrender. They had no idea that every human fleet had standing orders to ignore all communication attempts. Standard response, she said. Continue the mission. On the screen ahead, space rippled as the fleet prepared to jump to their next target. The new hyperspace drives, built using technology reverse-engineered from Min's intelligence, allowed human ships to move faster and more quietly than anything the Vexter possessed. They could appear at any point in the galaxy within hours, strike without warning, and disappear before enemy reinforcements arrived. The jump completed, and Kyung found herself staring at another Vextar installation. This one was smaller than the station they had just destroyed, probably a supply depot or communication relay. It hung in space like a massive organic tumor, its bioluminescent surface pulsing with alien signals. Electromagnetic pulse charged and ready, reported the weapons officer. All ships report ready to engage. Fire. The pulse struck the station's defenses exactly where Min's intelligence had indicated they would be weakest. Shields collapsed immediately, followed by cascading failures throughout the alien structure. Within seconds, the installation was helpless, its weapons offline, and its communication arrays dead. Boarding teams ready, Admiral, Captain Name, reported. Should we? Search for intelligence materials. Negative. We have everything we need from Min's package. Destroy it. The station exploded in a brilliant flash of light, adding another name to the growing list of Vexter facilities that no longer existed. Somewhere in the expanding cloud of debris, alien bodies drifted among the wreckage. Kyung felt no satisfaction watching them die. Only cold determination to complete her mission. Her communication officer suddenly looked up from his console, his face pale. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Vexstar Space. It's Commander HFY, the one who executed Li Min. The bridge fell silent. Every human in the fleet knew that name, had seen the footage of Min's final moments. The alien who had mocked humanity's weakness was now trying to contact them. Put it through, Kyung ordered. HFY's image appeared on the main screen, his usually confident demeanor replaced by obvious panic. His compound eyes darted nervously as he spoke, and his forearms gestured frantically. Human vessels. This is Commander HFY of the Vexstar Empire. We request immediate diplomatic contact. We are prepared to discuss terms for ending this conflict. We can offer territorial concessions, technology transfers, anything you require. Kyung stared at the alien commander in silence, remembering Min's calm face as she revealed the intelligence that was now destroying his empire. Behind HFY, she could see the interior of what appeared to be a damaged ship, sparks flying from broken systems. Please respond, HFY continued, his voice becoming more desperate. You're not fighting for territory. You're hunting us. You want us extinct. This cannot be what your species truly desires. Captain Nam looked to Kyung for orders, but she simply gestured to the communication officer. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Continue the sweep, she said quietly. Every installation, every ship, every outpost. On the hull of every human vessel, Min's final words gleamed in the starlight. Humanity forgives nothing. Admiral Song Kyung stepped carefully through the broken remains of the Vexter High Command Center, her boots crunching on fragments of shattered biocrystal displays. The one's magnificent structure had been reduced to smoking ruins after 6 months of relentless bombardment. Organic walls hung in tatters, leaking strange fluids that pooled on the fractured floor. Emergency lighting flickered weakly, casting eerie shadows across the devastation. Behind her, human marines moved through the rubble with weapons ready, their faces hidden behind combat masks. They had fought building by building, room by room, to reach this place. The final stronghold of the Vexter Empire had been defended by their best soldiers, but even they could not stand against humanity's cold determination. In the center of what had once been a grand command chamber, 12 Vextar survivors knelt in a circle. These were the last members of their high command, the architects of an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. Their compound eyes darted nervously between the human soldiers surrounding them, their forearms bound with restraints that prevented them from using their natural weapons. Commander HFY was among them, though he looked nothing like the arrogant creature who had executed Li Min months earlier. His carapace was cracked and scarred from battle, several of his limbs damaged beyond repair. The proud chittering that had once marked his speech was reduced to desperate whispers as he struggled to form words in human language. Please, he begged, his voice barely audible over the sound of settling debris. We offer complete surrender, total capitulation. Our remaining worlds, our technology, our resources, all of it belongs to humanity now. Just tell us what you want for peace. Kyung studied the kneeling aliens without expression. Around the ruined chamber, holographic displays still functioned sporadically, showing the extent of the Vextar collapse. Red markers indicated destroyed installations, empty colonies, dead worlds. What had once been a mighty empire spanning hundreds of star systems was now reduced to this single room of survivors. "You want to know what we want?" Kyung asked quietly, activating a holographic projector from her belt. The device cast a blue light into the air above the kneeling aliens, displaying data files that had been carefully compiled over months of warfare. The first image showed Li Min's face, frozen at the moment of her execution. Then Kim Dae, the diplomatic officer who had been tortured for weeks before his death. Then Oh Sung, a trade representative who had been killed when the Vexstar attacked his unarmed vessel. The faces continued appearing, one after another, each name spoken clearly by Kyung's voice. Li Min, Kim Dae, Oh Song Yoon Hai, Park Jun Ho, Choi So-young, Nam Ki-tae, Song Miran. The list went on for nearly an hour. Each name represented a human life that had been taken by the Vexstar Empire. Diplomats, traders, explorers, scientists, men and women who had ventured into space, seeking peaceful contact with alien civilizations, only to be murdered by creatures who saw them as inferior. Commander Hicksavel and his fellow survivors trembled as the names continued. They had assumed humans were weak because they cried for their dead, because they formed emotional attachments, because they valued individual lives over collective power. They had mistaken humanity's capacity for love as a fatal weakness. We did not understand," Hicksavel whispered when the list finally ended. "Your species seemed so fragile, so divided. We thought you would surrender after seeing our strength." Kyung gestured toward the shattered wall behind her, where part of her ship's hull was visible through the wreckage. Even in the dim emergency lighting, words carved into the metal gleamed clearly. "Humanity forgives nothing." "She told you exactly what would happen," Kyung said, pointing to Li Min's image still floating in the holographic display. "My people watched her die, and they heard her final words." Every human in the galaxy understood what she was promising. The surviving Vexstar looked at each other in growing desperation. Their entire understanding of warfare had been based on intimidation and overwhelming force. They conquered other species by demonstrating superior technology and ruthless efficiency. Once resistance seemed hopeless, their enemies would negotiate for the best possible terms of surrender. Humanity had never tried to negotiate. "But surely your leaders want something," another Vexstar commander pleaded. "Territory, resources. We can rebuild your worlds, restore your people. We have technology that could benefit your entire species." Kyung almost smiled at the aliens. Confusion. They still thought this was about conquest or revenge in the traditional sense. They could not comprehend a species that would pursue total annihilation simply because it was the logical response to their actions. "You studied us for weeks before Min's execution," she said calmly. "You analyzed our military capabilities, our population centers, our political structures, but you never studied our history." She activated another holographic display, this one showing Earth itself. The blue marble hung in space, peaceful and beautiful, giving no hint of the violence that had shaped its dominant species. 10,000 years of continuous warfare, Kyung continued. We conquered our own planet through countless conflicts, each one teaching us new ways to destroy our enemies. We learned to fight with sticks and stones, then bronze and iron, then gunpowder and nuclear weapons. We mastered every form of violence our world could teach us. The Vexstar survivors stared at the image of Earth with new understanding. They had seen humanity's peaceful expansion into space and assumed it reflected their fundamental nature. They had not realized they were looking at a species that had simply run out of enemies to fight. The galaxy thought we were gentle because we stopped fighting each other, Kyung explained. We turned our attention to exploration and diplomacy, because we had finally learned to direct our aggression outward instead of inward. You gave us a new target. Commander Hicksavel made one final, desperate attempt. What do you want? He asked, again, his voice breaking with desperation. Kyung looked at him with the cold patience of a predator that had already won. She pointed again to the words carved into her ship's hull, visible through the broken walls of the command center. She already told you, humanity forgives nothing. The last Vexstar stronghold fell silent except for the sound of settling debris and distant explosions. In the months that followed, their empty worlds would serve as monuments to a lesson the galaxy learned too late. Never mistake kindness for weakness, and never harm what humanity loves.